Hi, everybody. This is our collaborative research group project. My name is Stacy Luskin. Presenting with me is Lucy Licano, Raul Magallon, Adrian Martinez, and Jose Sarabia. In this presentation, we're going to recommend best practices for pre-service teachers through incorporating collaborative models, accessibility, and cultural pedagogy based on analyzing interviews with special education teachers, fieldwork observations, IRIS learning modules, and research articles. Each recommendation is aimed to provide strategies for the general education teacher to implement across each subject to support individual students' learning goals. The first one we're going to discuss is collaborative learning models.
For the collaborative models, we have two. The definition of collaboration is two or more individuals working together towards a common goal of planning and also implementing and evaluating a specific aspect of educational programs for a student of a group of students. The two collaborative models that seemed to stand out was co-teaching, which is a general teacher and a special education teacher working together to provide a better learning experience. And together they can be planning lessons, ideas, philosophies, and providing different perspectives. And also through that, they can bring different experiences to provide a more well-rounded experience for the classroom. Co-teaching makes it easier to implement differentiated instruction, and it also helps out the universal design for learning and personalized learning as well. Another one of the models is the inclusive models, which targets the needs of all students, regardless of background and identity, through cultural responsive pedagogy. Also, it allows for more group work, one-on-one learning modalities such as visual, auditory, and kinesthetic methods. Next slide, please. The collaborative strategies that were shown, you can see through the one teacher, one gathers data, the station teaching, alternative teaching, and one teaches, one assists. So through these strategies, you can see that educators can find different perspectives of approaching the strategies of how to implement the ways for the children to learn through different philosophies and ideologies. And also when comparing and contrasting the strategies, we also have some push-in instruction and pull-out instruction, which allows more implementing in the general education, and also pull-out instruction where special education teachers can pull out their students at specific times. As I said, comparing and contrasting the ideologies, the teaching styles, and the teamwork can help out for a better learning experience. And now for the accessibility.
So in the general education classroom, there are various types of learners, such as gifted and talented students, students with disabilities, average learners, English-speaking learners. And these are just a few types of students, but they all have diverse needs, and teachers need to make learning accessible for all students. One way that they do this is through accommodations and modifications in according to the student's individualized education plan or 504 plan. So while accommodations change how students complete the assignments or assessments, modifications actually modify the curriculum. Two examples from the fieldwork are in one classroom, some students use calculators while completing assignments. So this is an accommodation. Some students had completely different math lessons depending on their math level. This is a modification. So it's important to remember that accommodations and modifications don't provide unfair advantages. Instead, they level the playing field. So when teachers use accommodations appropriately, they provide equity. Another tool for accessibility is the universal design for learning. The three main principles are representation, the way that material is presented, action and expression, allowing students alternative to express or demonstrate their learning, and engagement, which is stimulating students' interest and motivation for learning in a variety of ways. So by using these three principles, teachers can make learning accessible for all students. Other ways that teachers support gifted students are by curriculum compacting, accelerating, and enrichment. For at-risk students, they also give individualized attention, reasonable expectations, and involve others in case that resources are needed. So to sum up, teachers need to adapt their materials, instructions, and assessment in order to meet the needs of all individual students and their individual learning needs.
The third aspect of an inclusive classroom we'll be talking about is the culturally responsive pedagogy. CRP is a method of teaching that offers fair opportunities to students from all cultures. Culture, as defined by Brown University, is any student's background in terms of their religion, their ethnicity, their race, their nationality, and this can impact their customs, practices, values, attitudes, and attitudes towards education and educational expectations. And what CRP does to accommodate for all of these factors are acknowledging the culture, acknowledging acknowledging the different cultures in the classroom, responding to each culture, and celebrating each culture. Any classroom that lacks the CRP risks alienating students who are not part of the dominant culture. That is the culture that is most prominent in the classroom and often includes the instructor. And these issues can result in conflicts with how the material is presented, assessment and assignment design, behavioral expectations, linguistics, and expected responses. All of these line up in a way that conflict with the cultures of other students in the classroom, resulting in them underperforming compared to students of the dominant culture. Next slide. CRP is addressed in three main ways in schools. The first being culturally responsive instruction. What this means is the content actually reflects the different cultures in the classroom. This is by reflecting histories of students of all backgrounds in the material, making connections between their background knowledge and the content you're going over, and including multicultural literature in the curriculum. Another issue that students can often face is linguistic alienation, which a way to address that is by being linguistically accommodating. That is encouraging students to participate in the classroom regardless of the way they express themselves. Basically focusing on what the student is saying rather than how they're saying it. Because again, this can be influenced by cultures, and not including these students can result in them not participating in discussions. And finally, the last step and most energy intensive is family and community engagement. That is meaningfully involving, building positive relations, and getting to know members of the family and community, because no one knows the culture of the students better than the people in those cultures. And by doing so, you're able to familiarize yourself with the cultures and with the students, as well as familiarizing yourself with potential needs of the students, as well as how to responsibly address the culture in the classroom.
So lastly, we'll go over our recommendations for future educators. So our first recommendation is that collaborating with the families of the students is key in your classroom. The reason we believe that this is important is because research shows that when teachers are involved with the students' families, there is an increased student achievement, improved attendance and behavior, improved social emotional skills, and increased graduation rates. So just by working with the families and getting to know them personally, you are helping your students in the long run as well. Our second recommendation is to make your material and your lessons accessible for all your students. When you use UDL or other types of practices, that allows your students to learn in accordance with their learning preferences. You know, every student learns differently, so it's best that you try to reach them all in as many different ways as you can, just to make sure that they are understanding. It also, another important one is to create alternative ways for students to receive and deliver information. Again, they have different preferences, so we should understand what works best for them and how we could reach them with how we teach. Our third recommendation is culturally responsive teaching. Um, Again, we have students with all different types of cultures, so it's best that we reflect that culture in our lessons. As of 2009, 73% of students in California were racially or ethnically diverse. However, more than half the teachers in the state are white. So this means already just between our students and the teachers, there's already going to be some cultural differences. So it's important that we as educators acknowledge our cultural differences and make sure that we try to teach ourselves and learn the differences in our students so that we're able to work with them on a level that they understand at things that work for them, and that we actually know who they are and the types of things their families celebrate, or the languages they speak at home and things like that. And on the last slide, we'll go, these are our references. And thank you guys all for listening. And that is the end of our presentation.